Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Sharon Oyella, and today we are crocheting up this little eyeball. So this eyeball can be used as a Halloween prop. You can make a bunch of them, put them in jars, or use them as decorations. You can hang them off your mantle or whatever you want to do with them. I actually designed this smaller eyeball specifically for this monster here, and this monster is also a free pattern here on my YouTube channel and also on my blog. You can find that up here in the iCard, also in the description box below. This one was designed specifically for fitting inside his mouth. So I have two eyeball patterns. I have a larger one and a smaller one. So this is the smaller one. And then there's the larger one here, and you can see the big difference in size. The smaller one only has 9 rows. I believe there's 13 in this one. I don't have an official video for this bigger one, but everything that we do in this smaller one today is done in this larger one as well. So I show you how to change colors, skip over stitches, add the veins, we stuff it and close it up and all that great stuff. So I'm going to show you a couple more things before we get started, because we're going to get started in just a minute with this small eyeball. Everything on my desk is free. I have videos here on YouTube and also free written patterns that can be printed off from my blog. So these are Halloween, so I just thought I'd throw them up for you to see. We got the Cutie Pocket Bat. He's a cute little guy. You can hang him upside down or right side up. And then we have the eyeball eating monster. He's designed for the smaller eye, to eat the smaller eye. And he has a working zipper, but I show you how to do all of that here on YouTube. And then we have the pocket ghost. We can make the bride and groom, or you can just make a bunch of them. I've seen these all the time on Facebook now that since I've released the pattern, and I really released it last year, and there's people make them in bunches at a time. You can see it glows. And then we have the grumpy pumpkin. You can also just make it without a face and it can be a decorative pumpkin. And a jar of eyeballs. We're going to get to that in just a minute. I knew I was missing somebody earlier when I was filming that introduction. I couldn't put my finger on it. I don't know how I could forget this little guy, little Frankie. His pattern was released the same time I did the other Halloween patterns last year. So he has a free written pattern on my blog, and there's a video tutorial for him. And there's some cute stories around this guy and some photos. He officiated a ghost wedding last year. If you want to check that out, I'll put that link in the description box below, along with the written patterns. Alright guys, I think that about covers it. So let's go over that supplies list real quick, and then we're going to get started making some juicy eyeballs. So again, that written pattern is free on my blog, or you can just watch this video and I show you every row in the video. So you're going to need 3 different colors. Very little of the black, very little of the alternate color, and then the majority of the color that we use is white, of course. For the veins you can use red yarn or embroidery thread. I use worsted weight yarn, and I used brown in the video so you can see the stitches better. I used brown for the beginning part there. And so there's my brown and my alternate color, and then my white. These are huge balls of yarn. These are Red Heart Comfort, but you can use any yarn of your own choice. If you use a different worsted weight yarn, it might come out a little bit smaller than this guy, but that's totally fine. And with that yarn, I used a size F. That's a 3.75 millimeter hook. A blunt end yarn needle for sewing. I believe this is a size 13, but you don't have to get the same size. I find the blunt end works the best. Pair of scissors, of course, a small amount of stuffing, and you can use a marker. I did use a marker to add in a little bit more color. This is a fabric pen, but you can use a regular felt pen. Alright guys, I think that covers it, so let's get started. In the next clip, we're going to start with the center of the eyeball. Alright guys, let's take a quick look at the written pattern so you know exactly what I'm talking about as I'm going through the pattern. So we're working on the small eyeball. You're going to start with black. I'm using brown so you can see the stitches better. And we're on row 1. We're going to make a magic ring with 6 single crochets. Now there's 2 different ways that you could do this ring, and I have 2 video tutorials for those methods. I'll call them method 1 and method 2. I'll put them in the description box below, and they'll also be popping up here on your screen. I'm going to use method 1, and method 1 is crocheting over a double ring. Now some people love it and some people hate it, so you're going to watch what I'm doing. If you don't like it, you can try the second method, and again those links are up here, also in the description box below. Alright, so I'm making a slip knot first, and in those video tutorials I go very slowly over this part. Many of you will already know how to do this ring. So now I'm going to put 6 single crochets into this ring. I'm going to go through the center every time I go through, grab the yarn and pull it through, and there was my first single crochet. Now I'm going to repeat that 5 more times. Got to do one more, and 6. Now I'm going to close up the ring. My starting yarn tail is in between those two strings. I'm just going to pull it out. And now I'm going to pull on one of these strings to close it up, and it wasn't that one, so I know it's this one. And I'm pulling up from these two fingers here, pulling upward to close that ring. Now to get rid of this loop, I'm going to pull on the starting yarn tail. Now that is my favorite method of getting the ring, but like I said, a lot of people don't like it, so you can decide which one works better for you by watching both of those videos. So there's our row 1 with 6 single crochets in it, and if you look at it this way, you can see the V's of each stitch. There's 2 loops in each stitch and they look like a V. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When you go through, you're going to go right underneath those 2 loops in the stitch, and then you're going to grab your yarn and pull it through. So we're working on row number 2, and this is where we're going to change colors. We're going to change colors in the first stitch of the row. So going through that first stitch, going through both loops, pull the yarn through. Now you have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to leave those on your hook. Hold the working yarn back here and put your finger over it. And now we're going to bring in our alternate color. I'm going to hold it underneath the same finger and get ready to crochet on with the new color. Now I can switch fingers and pull the blue color through these 2 loops. So grab it and pull it through, and now chain 1, yarn over, and pull through the blue loop. And there we go. Now we're ready to carry on. You can pull on these back here to tighten them up, but you don't have to worry about that. We're going to be knotting those off in a few rows from now. Alright guys, we're going to be increasing this row by adding 6 stitches to the row. So when we're done the row completely, we're going to have 12 stitches in the row. So we're going to be adding 2 single crochets into the next 6 stitches. And you want to make sure that you're not going back into the one you just worked. So if I pull on this yarn tail back here, because it's going to be a little bit hard for you to see when you're using black as well. So if I'm pulling on that, you see where it's coming through? We don't want to go into that stitch because we've already worked it. So just make sure you skip over that first V and you're going into the next stitch, and that's where we're going to start. And we're going to go through, pull our yarn through. There's our first single crochet, and then we're going to go back in the same stitch and put another one. And now we're going to repeat that 5 more times, 2 single crochets in the next 5 stitches. So we're going to be working every single one of these brown stitches in the row. And for you, of course, that's going to be every black stitch in the row. This is the 4th one. 2 single crochets, 2 single crochets into the 5th. And then the last stitch of the row, 2 single crochets into the 6th. So we want to have 12 stitches around, but because we chained 1 right there, we have 13 stitches because we're counting that chain 1 as a stitch. So we're going to skip over this first stitch, and then we're going to go into this one and put a single crochet. And that's going to be the end of the row. So now if you count them, you have 12 stitches around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So we're going to stop. We're going to break free. Don't cut through your working yarn. And I'm going to use this little yarn tail here as a marker. If you have a regular marker, go ahead and use it. I'm just going to go through my last stitch that I just put in and pull one side of that marker through and leave the other one hanging, and it looks just like that. And now I'm going to move this marker at the end of every row. We're going to change colors in the first stitch. So this time we're going to go through the first one, pull the blue through, leave those 2 loops on your hook, and now we're going to bring in the white. Hold it underneath the same finger back here, get ready to crochet on with the white, and switch fingers. Now you can pull the white through those 2 blue loops and chain 1. And now we can break free from the blue yarn. So we're done with those 2 colors. Now we're going to finish up the eye with only the white. We don't have to switch colors anymore. So we switched colors and we chained 1, and now we're going to continue on with row 3. we're going to be putting 1 single crochet in the next 3 stitches and then 2 single crochets into the 4th, and we're going to do that sequence 3 times. So we're increasing the number of stitches in this row. If you take a look at the stitches as they are right now, if you turn it towards you, you can see the V's of each stitch. But the very first one here looks like the first stitch of the row, but it's not. I'll see if I can find the blue yarn. There it is. If I pull it, see, we don't want to go back into that stitch. We've already worked that stitch. We're going to make sure we're skipping over that and we're starting here. So 1 single crochet in the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. And now 2 single crochets into the 4th. 1, 2, and now repeating that sequence. 1 single crochet in the next 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and now 2 single crochets into the 4th. 1 and 2, and now we're going to repeat it for the last time. 1 single crochet in the next 3, and you can see that third one's going to land on the marker, and that's what we want. 1, 2, and 3, and now 2 single crochets into the 4th, and that's the stitch after the marker. 1 and 2, and just like the last row, we're going to be skipping over that chain 1, and we're going to put a single crochet into the next stitch. And that's the end of row 3, and now we can move our marker. And now we have 15 stitches around. Carrying on to row 4, we're going to increase this row as well, so we're going to be adding stitches to the row, and that will be the last time. So row 4, we're not going to be skipping over anything or changing colors, and this marker is the end of the row. So when we land on this marker, that will be the end of the row. And for this row, we're going to be putting 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches, and then 2 single crochets into the 5th, and we're going to repeat that. We should do that sequence 3 times in this row. When we land on the marker, we'll be putting in 2 single crochets. So again, if you turn it towards you, that first V right there is actually one we just worked. You can see the yarn sitting in there, so make sure you're not going back into that one. And go into the first stitch of the next row. 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches. That was 1, 2, 3, and 4. And now 2 single crochets into the 5th stitch. 1 and 2. And it's starting to fold up on itself. It might be a little bit difficult to crochet like that, so just stop, and where all those yarn tails are hanging out of, just push those inward towards you. And now we're working on the right side again. We're going to repeat that sequence. 1 single crochet in the next 4 stitches. And 4. And then 2 single crochets into the 5th. And I'm going to repeat it for the last time. When we land on the marker, we'll be putting in 2 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the 5th one lands on that marker, so I'll just pull it out and put 2 single crochets. And that's the end of row 4, and now we have 18 stitches around. We're going to stop and knot off all our yarn tails, and it's going to clean up some of this color jump in there. So just pull out your last stitch so you don't lose it. Flip this so the wrong side is sticking out. So once it's inside out, you can see the color change pairs. They should be side by side. There's the white and the blue, and then over here is the blue, and one of these is a starting yarn tail, and the starting yarn tail is coming out the center. So those two. So I want to knot these 2 tails off right here. So these first 2, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull in the opposite direction, and that's just going to clean up that line. And now I'm going to knot it twice. 1, 2, and then my second pair, same thing. I'm going to pull in the opposite direction and then knot it off. And I'll do 2 knots. 1 and 2. And now I can cut these up shorter. Just make sure not to cut through your working yarn. And I can leave those tucked inside the eye. You want to cut them up on the shorter side so you don't see any yarn tails through the white yarn after you get it stuffed. Now we can continue on, and we'll add our marker. We now have 18 stitches in the row. Rows 5 through 7 is 1 single crochet in each one of those 18 stitches for 3 rows. So you're going to go ahead and put one single crochet in each one of those 18 stitches, and that will be one completed row, and then you're going to do that 2 more times. Make sure that you move the marker every time you end the row. One single crochet in each one of those 18 stitches for 3 rows. You can pause the video now and come on back, and we'll meet back here at the end of row 7. Welcome back. We're at the end of row 7 and I've moved my marker, and I'm going to show you how to count the rows just in case you've lost track somewhere in here. So this row right here, the center hole is the center hole of row 1. So we just count those rings. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. We're at the end of row 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Alright, so let's continue on. Now we're going to decrease the row, so we're going to have to crochet stitches together, and don't worry, I'm going to walk you through each one, and we only have 2 rows left and then we're done. Alright, so now we're going to put one single crochet in the next stitch, and then we're going to crochet 2 stitches together. So let's do it together. When we land on the marker, we'll be crocheting stitches together. So one single crochet in the first stitch, and now 2 stitches together. So go through the next stitch like you normally would, grab your yarn, pull it through. Leave those loops on your hook and go into the next stitch, grab your yarn and pull it through. Now you have 3 loops, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And we just crochet 2 stitches together, we turn 2 stitches into 1. Now we're going to repeat that, one single crochet in the next stitch, and now 2 stitches together. And now repeating, one single crochet, and then 2 stitches together. One single crochet and 2 together. One single crochet and 2 together. And then the last time, one single crochet and 2 together is going to land on that marker, so I'll just pull it out and crochet 2 together. That's the end of row 8. Now we have 12 stitches around, and I pulled out my last stitch so I don't lose it, and I'm just going to put a little bit of stuffing in there. We don't have to worry about stuffing it so much because we're going to putting more in at the end of the next row. Okay, so I just put the majority in there, and I'm going to add my marker. And this is the last row. For this row, we're going to put one single crochet in the next 2 stitches and then crochet 2 together. So let's do this one together. One single crochet in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2, and you can see I'm holding the stuffing out of the way. And I'm going to crochet 2 stitches together. 1 and 2, and now I can pull through all 3 loops. And we just have to do that 2 more times. One single crochet in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2, and 2 together. And last time for this row, one single crochet in the next 2 stitches. And now 2 together is going to land on that marker, so I'll just pull it out and 2 together. Pull out your last stitch so you don't lose it. And now we're going to break free, leave a bit of a tail so we can use it for sewing. Pull that yarn tail through that loop and pull tight. Now we're going to stuff more, but before we do that, we're going to weave in and out of the remaining stitches. So take your yarn tail, bend it over, push the bend through your needle, and now weave in and out of these remaining stitches all the way around to where your knot is. So in and out, in and out. Okay, before we pull on that to close up the gap, let's put in more stuffing. You can use the back end of a pencil as well if you're having troubles getting your finger in there. I think that's good, so now I can pull on that yarn tail, pull tight, and it closes that gap. And now I just need to knot off to keep the gap closed. And if you don't think that knotted off, then just do it again. Go through a bit of yarn before pulling it all the way through. Just go through that loop. Okay, I think that looks good. Now I can use this yarn tail to add a little bit of white to the eye if I wanted to. You don't have to, you can skip that part. I'll just come through the center hole. Okay, and now I'm just going to wrap over. 1, 2, and then I'll bring it through to the back. I'm just going to guide it into place there. And to keep it there, I'm just going to knot off. So just wrapping around a bit of yarn, and again, before pulling it all the way through, go through that loop and pull. And now you can just bring it through anywhere away from that area and cut free. Pull on it slightly and cut. Alright, you can leave them as they are. I think they look great just like that. If you wanted to add in veins, you can use red yarn, you can use embroidery thread, you can use a felt pen. I got a fabric pen, but you can also use just a plain felt pen. All of that is optional, and you can do both of these at the same time, which I did a lot on my larger eyeballs. And I'm just going to start in the back of the eye, and I'll just come up, bring the yarn needle through one of the stitches on the edge of the color, and then I can wrap around, go back in, and I could come through the center. You can play around with this, you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. And I would just wrap around that so it kind of keeps it in place. So I'm just bring my yarn needle over that, and I could go, let's see, right here, and then back in, and I could come up here. And remember what I said, you can play around with this, you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. And that just gives kind of like a veiny look there. Now I can wrap through the center again at the bottom and do that same sort of zigzag look, I guess. And then you can just continue around, and you don't have to do those zigzags on every one. You can just put one straight line, it doesn't matter. Whatever you want to do, whatever's easiest for you. So when it gets short like that, I would just bring it through the bottom, and I'll just wrap around here. And I'm going to knot it off. I wrapped around once, and I'm going to do it again. There's a little loop there, just like I did with the yarn. Then I'll go through that loop and pull. Now you can leave this hanging out the back, and it looks really gross that way. It all depends on the look you're going for, like I said. But if you want to get rid of that yarn tail, or the thread tail, just bring it in and pull it out anywhere. And then you can cut it free. Pull on it slightly and cut. And now I can work with the other side. I can knot this one off. Now I was just thinking, before I turned the camera on, so I had all the thread tails in the pattern coming out the back of the eye like this, but if you wanted to hang it where you could see the color of the eye, then you could actually bring this up through somewhere up through here, and you could use this as something to hang the eyeball from. You could use this thread, see? Now it's ready to hang. You could tie this onto a banner or whatever you're decorating with it and do it that way. Or, like I said, if you wanted to get rid of the thread tails, then you just cut them free. Knot it off and cut it free. Okay, and if you wanted to add a little bit more color, I went over on mine, I just went over those red lines with my felt pen. And you can even add extra if you wanted with just your felt. Alright my friends, that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you found it helpful, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps me out a lot. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the pattern, and if you did make yourself a little eyeball or one of the monsters that eat them, I would sure love to see pictures. You can post them on my Facebook page, Amigurumi Freely. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you super soon.